Sir, I have intel. It seems that Standard Man has finally been vanquished. Oh, but that's great news, isn't it? However, we also have unfortunate news. Standard Man was merely a clone of the true Standard Man. Wait, but then, who's the true Standard Man? Standard Man's true identity is hyu-ga. Welcome to a meta-analysis that is probably as late as it could physically possibly be. I mean, you already know the drill. It's like Vanguard EX and all this other stuff that just like delayed this to hell. Don't worry, the one for V-BT06 will be out like literally the same week that this one goes out because I'm sick of being late. It really doesn't feel good and I just keep getting lazier and lazier because then I'm like, well, it's already late so it doesn't even matter. But it does matter. Anyway, the Standard Man plot thickens, and today we're going to take a look at the, well, not the restriction list, we already looked at that. We're going to look at the post-restriction list meta for V-BT06, so what it's shaped up to be, and then later this week I'll have a separate video looking at the VEB09, so post-Raging Tactics meta, which will include the, newly supported Tachikaze spikes and Mega Colony. Mega Colony, I mean, we'll keep that for next video, I don't want to splash that into this one, but anyway, let's just take a look at the chart and I think it's going to tell the whole story. So without any further ado, here it is. So you can already see that, well, Standard Man is truly dead. Like there isn't a smudge of Standard Man. As always, big thank you to Dexander for providing these charts. It's created by him and he compiles all the information. So big thank you to him. So not a single clan out of all of these is Bermuda. On the pre-restriction list, there were still 9 Bermudas in the V-BT06 meta, but here, gone. Just vanquished, destroyed, absolutely gone. So Standard Man is dead. However, it turns out that wasn't even Standard Man. That was just one of his clones. Pum pum pum. So, the new dominant force, the new deck that really just towers over everything is the one and only Murakumo. But one thing important to note is that Japan has the really strong promo that is Meomaru, which we don't get until next month in English, but that didn't stop Murakumo from topping like 2 BCSs back to back. It got like 4 out of 8 top 8 slots. Like, this deck is crazy even without Meomaru. You just run the Spellhound with the Jiraiya, like it doesn't even matter. But this deck is just crazy good. It's insanely good. So first things first, it's obviously carried by hyu-ga. That's actually both its best and worst part because it's the best possible card in the deck because it makes so many things work, but if you don't draw it, you're kind of dead. You're literally just like trying to survive playing Shirayuki and other cards, but like this card is so crucial for the Murakumo deck. Like hyu-ga really carries the whole deck. Some people have been trying like hyu-ga Zanbaku variants, but hyu-ga is just so strong together with Shirayuki. It's just insanely good. Like the deck is able to field control. It's able to search out basically anything in the deck. It can tutor for anything. Like not just grade 1s, grade 2s, like basically anything. And then on top of that, like you can circumvent some of your own skills like the Million Rat. You can have the whole Shirayuki engine. You can have Fushimis. You can have Spellhounds, Jiraiya's, whatever you want. You have the one-eyed Nudo that goes into Soul so you can like just not even re-ride to do the spell, to do the field wipe. Like, it's so good. It's just really good. It basically goes live and is super aggressive from turn 3 onwards. Like, the deck really doesn't have many weaknesses, and I think if it continues dominating like this, it's probably going to have a similar fate as Bermuda. I think Bushiroad really didn't expect this deck to be as good as it really is. Like, I honestly think that Bushiroad, like, weren't expecting people to catch on to how strong it is, or like combine cards like Danzetsan Arc and Meomaru and Spellhound and Jiraiya and all these things together into this like amalgamation of a deck that just dominates over everything. Like, I think nobody expected this, even against decks that return their field to whatever source, like Pale Moon returning their field to the Soul. Like, this deck is still great because just having huge numbers and your opponent having to defend for their lives is problematic, and that is a problem for a lot of decks and they can't deal with it. So Murakumo is just a beast. It's an absolute beast. It absolutely dominates this meta. So we have 26, almost 27% of the tops picking up in Japan with Murakumo. That's all. However, it's not the only one that's doing great. Next we have Shadow Paladin. Obviously they got their Mordred. Mordred is a great deck. It's not as like convoluted, it's a bit more of a simple deck. Like, you're basically just farming force markers, force 1 specifically usually, with the Blaster Dark and the Mordred skill, and then you got a bunch of win cons. Either you have a win con in Blaster Dark, Mordred, restand, and just swinging for 50, 60, 70k, pretty chill. and then you have Danger Lunge, which can also win games pretty easily. And then, you know, like, you still have the good old Shadow Paladin stuff that was always good, like the Nemains, the Sword Breakers. You got the new Grade 2 5k Bird that basically works as a PG. Like, you have the new Grade 2 Masquerade that also lets you search for a Mordred or a Blaster Dark, so that if you're Grade stuck, you get to do something about it. And then it's just really good. Like, if you lose a Blaster Dark, ooh, here's Grade 1 Masquerade, just ready to bring it back. Like, the deck is really good. The deck is really good. It's not as, like, surprising that it's good. I think everybody expected it to be good. And so having 20% of total tops is not surprising. I mean, it could have easily overtaken Murkomo. It's barely behind. So, yeah, pretty insane. Now, next, one of the other fan favorites is Pale Moon. So Silverthorns and Lukier, very strong. Well, I mean, the deck is really good, but I can't remember if by here in the chart, if people had caught on to what the arguable best build is with Brassy Bunny, because you're able to essentially, like, not only have the super aggressive plays of Lukier, of, like, counterblast 2 equals full board of, like, 6 attacks, and, like, just all this crazy garbage that the deck can do. Like, it's just insane. And then, like, just hitting for big numbers, lots of attacks, lots of filtering. Every soul charge is, like, apart from the Brassy Bunny, every soul charge is selective. You can just soul charge whatever you want. And then with, like, cards like Arena, if you soul charge triggers, you get to still, like, draw. Oh no, wait, that's in Dark Regular. Sorry, with Arena you just have to soul charge 2 to draw. But it's a really good deck. It's insane, but Brassy Bunny gives you the extra kind of point, and I think Andy from WCC will take a look at this more in depth, because he got second at the BCS in New Zealand with this deck, and he basically said that, like, in Japan, a lot of people have been playing a lot of Brassy Bunny because you're able to essentially set up a stack on the bottom of your deck full of fronts, and then you just, like, turbo soul charge with the Brassy Bunny, and then you get to that stack. So yeah, that's another important point, but I'll recommend you to go check out World Class Card Fighters. Once he posts a video of his Lukier deck list, I will just link it in the description so you can check it out. But that's basically, in our opinion, the optimal Pale Moon deck, because you basically have 2 win cons. You have the win con of just pure Lukier advantage, and then you have the win con of that, like, front stack. But also, like, apart from that, some opponents might not be too smart. They might give you spare counterblast, which you can then use on the Breathing Dragon to, like, get more attacks, and then you can use it on the Lillian to tutor for anything, and then Dorian just puts everything back, draws you a bunch of cards, gets you another Grade 3 ride for next turn. It's just, whew, it's insane. Then we have some familiar faces from the last format. So Aquaphor is actually showing up at 10%. We already talked about this, but Aquaphor, I mean, it's good simply because you check fronts, you win. That's kind of how it is. Like, on a glory turn, a front trigger can basically kill the opponent with no effort. Like, you don't even need to set up multi-attackers. Obviously they help, but even if you don't, just the raw power and not being able to guard so many attacks and not getting defensives on top of that will end games. Like, Aquaphor can just win through the sheer power of a front trigger and the glory skill, and all you need to do to get there is reach turn 4 and then hope to God that you check a front. So I don't know how I feel about that. It's not the most, like, intense skilled mechanic that you could have for a deck, but I mean, it works. So I mean, it's 10%. 10% is pretty good. So yeah. The other 10% is my boys, DP. DP is, I mean, I don't know for these lists, but I mean, from my videos, you've probably seen that DP is going in a very forced 2 direction, because you're able to counterblast starve a lot of decks. Pale Moon needs 2 counterblast to make their plays. Well, I guess they're not seeing it unless they want to die. It's like, Shadows need counterblast to, like, do Mordred and Swordbreaker and whatever else they want. Well, I guess they can live with 1 counterblast or die, you know. So it's like stuff like that. DP is really good at damage controlling right now. Like, DP and Narukami, which is, well, our next thing to look at, are really good for that reason, because they're able to just put this kind of, like, hold on the opponent, where it's like they either have to take this fat Vanguard attack and risk dying if I check a crit, or they're stuck at, like, 2 damage for the whole game, and they just have to, I mean, if they run counter chargers, great, perfect, they can still survive and win. If they don't, I guess you're just sitting there and running out of resources and grinding out for games, so, you know. So yeah, DP, great spot. Narukami, like I said, basically the same, just a bit more aggressive. And like, Narukami has different playstyles that lends itself to. Some people play the deck really aggressively and try to just rush down the opponent early, thanks to stuff like Chowo, and then some people just, I mean, kind of lock the opponent just like DP does, and then wait for the perfect chance until they've blown through all the PGs to actually win. But I think DP does a better job at blowing through PGs because the power is higher, and so they typically have no choice but to PG. So it kind of depends, but it's, I mean, thankfully there's like 0 protect decks in this whole thing. Actually, there's 1, and it has 1 top in this entire chart, which is Dark Regulars, our next deck. Dark Regulars is pretty strong. It seems to slightly miss out on reaching top cut quite a lot. Like, it does well, and then it just doesn't top. Like, it'll like bubble and not top. It'll like get top 8 and then not go further. You know, so it's like, it's a good deck, but it is mechanically quite tricky, and I feel like you need to be quite lucky against your opponent. I think if it wasn't for Murakumo, the deck would be great. It's just Murakumo that kind of stops it. Luckily, it's good in premium, so that's fine. So that's like the only of the V-BT06 decks that doesn't have the best performance, but like Brufas and the Killer Tail and like all these cards are really, really good at setting up. I talked about it in quite a lot of detail in the set breakdown, so you can still check that out. But I think the deck itself is really good. I think there's just 2 issues. 1, it's not popular. 2, it doesn't, like, when it does do well, it slightly misses out. So I'm sure if it was a bit more popular and like some of the players that were playing the other clans at top tier were playing DI instead, I'm sure we'd get a top here and there. But if you're a truly competitive player and you really care about the prize, you're going to go for one of those big 3/5. So those are, I mean, I think the big 5/big 6 with Narukami are the ones that like you can take it to a tournament safely in this meta. And I would also say for VEB09 as well. I think all 6 of those are still valid. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Then Kagura, still doing strong. We talked about Kagura a lot, so I'm just going to skip over this because, I mean, it's been here for quite a few sets. Royals and Golds kind of fall into the same boat. They both have 1 top each here, and so, I mean, for Royals, they are still quite strong, and there's still a big representation for the deck, and I think, especially like I've seen in like Thailand and stuff, the deck still gets tops, and it's still quite consistent in just like grabbing a random top here and there. So I think this is kind of the same situation where it's like, it's not like super meta in terms of popularity, which is what meta actually means, but it's good. Like, it's just good enough to be able to win. But when you compare Gancelot and Mordred, obviously Mordred does come out on top, but the Gancelot deck still has a lot of tools and pieces that, well, Mordred doesn't quite have. So it's just a different kind of deck, but it's still quite strong. Golds, I mean, it's kind of a high rolly thing, but it did get 1 really interesting top last weekend, which isn't part of this chart, obviously, but I think in BCS Singapore, there was an Azel Pelennor list that topped, which I found really interesting, and it seems like a new direction for Azel, so I actually quite liked it, so maybe that's worth giving a look. Alright folks, so that's it for this super late, like insanely, like, oh my god, it's like a month late meta-analysis. I'm sorry. I hope my little lore expansion in the beginning was good enough to justify you watching this. But we're gonna be back for another meta-analysis really soon for the VEB09 format, because there is a lot to take a look at there. So I hope you guys are excited, because, you know, it's gonna be interesting. It might be different, it might not, who knows? I mean, maybe you know, but yeah, it's still worth to take a look at. We might be repeating some sentences here and there because, I mean, a lot of these decks are staying the same. So we're gonna take a look at all that stuff on the next one that will be out very, very soon. So do look forward to that. But on that note, it's gonna be it for me today. Don't forget to check out Twitch. I've been streaming quite a lot. I've been streaming Vanguard EX, but I'm also streaming other games. I streamed Legends of Runeterra while I was in beta, and I'm also going to be streaming Shadowverse and other games like that. So if you're interested, do check it out on Twitch and follow me on Twitter and all that good stuff. But anyway, that's going to be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.